And so, what is not moving and changing? What is the constant here now in this moment? What is ever the same? Where is God not? Where is love not? We can glean information from our responses, because where we think God is not, where we think love is not, is showing us where we are identified with the personal. What is not moving? What is not changing? What is always the same, ever present? Here we are concerned only with this. What we are speaking of is not an experience that comes and goes. We're not speaking of creating a better experience for the me. We're speaking of a whole shift of perspective that changes the way that life is seen, viewed, known. It changes it completely to reality. There can be so many ways that the world and the mind can present ideas of what you need to work upon, that you mustn't give yourself wholeheartedly to this truth because somehow it's taking you away from something important that you need to learn about yourself and face. But the truth is, you can only face yourself when you know the truth of who you are. You cannot actually fully face yourself when the belief in separation is still in place. You can work in the psychological realm, but you cannot fully face yourself until you are the wholeness that can truly include everything. So we focus upon the wholeness. We focus upon the glory that is always here, the love that is always here. Not as a way of getting away from the hard things in life, but as a way of seeing clearly, seeing truly what is reality and what is not. As a way of shifting the whole perspective to truth, the absolute truth. And that what it takes to truly shift and live this, what might get called self-realization, it takes everything. It takes everything to keep focusing upon what is true and directly known in the direct experience, in order to keep seeing through all of the possible distractions, all of the possible ideas of what we have to do. What's really happening is that we are opening and allowing a rebalancing to happen in the heart. From the true perspective, a rebalancing can actually happen because we're resting in the wholeness, we're resting in the vastness. that allows a rebalancing to happen. And it allows us to truly face ourselves, truly face all that we have believed we are, all of the ways that the needs met structure and protections are constantly pulling us into identification. And how the mind will always think that there's more work to do, right? And it's not that there aren't residues to clear in the lived experience, but the deeper that we know what is true, that we truly know that there is nowhere that God is not, there's nowhere that love is not. And only in this knowing, this clear knowing, can we truly face what seems unfaceable, what seems so hard, what seems so sticky. We can face it when we have the wideness, the remembrance of our infinite nature. Because this is when these patterns have the possibility of truly unwinding. That they're not unwinding into a limited space where they're going to bump into themselves again. We're speaking of completing the whole play of karma by not repeating and looping it, by seeing through all of the ways that we can get fixated and stuck because of protections. And as we open to remember the vast, ever-present being that is always here, we have the true clear perspective to see from. This true clear perspective is what realigns and reorganizes our seeing to clear vision, and also recalibrates the nervous system. And so the nervous system is consciousness, and it's recalibrating the consciousness out of its limited patterns to remember the wide open purity that is always the true nature, and that all of the patterns that create our behaviors and our protective conditioned ways of being unravel and recalibrate when there is literally the spaciousness, the infinite spaciousness for it to unravel into. So what we're speaking of is we're not reorganizing the room. We're not reorganizing the furniture. What we're doing is taking down the walls, right? We're taking it all down. Because it doesn't matter where the furniture is. If we're seeing a confined space, that we imagine that we can keep reconfiguring the furniture, and then we'll find a configuration that makes me feel happy and good. We're speaking about that the space inside and the space outside is the same. And so we're seeing without walls. We're seeing without boundaries. We're seeing that there's nothing that's containing us. And everything that we think is containing us is not actually containing us in truth. And as we remember that the being is never contained, the being is never disturbed, the being is always ever present, ever wide, infinite, that love is always here, that God, the glory, is always here. It allows us to face ourselves from a perspective that where there feels to be containment and limitation, where there feels to be protection and conditioning, we can see from a perspective that sees it all, includes it all, allows it all, but knows something more profound, knows a perspective that is bigger than any perspective that can happen within the functioning of the me and the mind. And so what we are speaking of is so beyond the mind's ability to understand. And we can have glimpses and openings to this reality. But even to open in a way that gets spoken of in awakening, to know that you're the awareness, it's only the beginning, right? So sometimes it can be recognized, well, you know the awareness, and yet there are still challenges in life. And so there can be this idea, well, being the awareness isn't the answer. But the truth is that being the awareness, knowing that you're the awareness, it's not the answer, because it's just the beginning. It's just the beginning. And now life is the guru, life is the teacher. Life is now offering every opportunity, every moment is an opportunity to be refined, to realize the absolute wholeness and divinity that you are. So to know that you are awareness is still going to seem limiting. It's actually still going to seem limiting, even to be in what might be spoken of as a unity consciousness. Because as long as there's self-referencing happening, that self has got to go for realization to complete itself, let's say. But we also want to be careful about how the mind might interpret the word complete itself. Because to complete seems like, oh yes, that sounds good. Let's get to the end of the road. Let's get to the lotus pad and just hang out. But it's not like that. The completion is the completion of the misunderstanding. The completion is in a way like a correction. It's a realignment, a reorientation to the true perspective. It's a completion of an identification with cause and effect, a belief that if you do this, this will happen. If you do this, this will happen. It's seeing through the whole play of opposites. So what we're speaking of is so beyond what the mind can comprehend. And so if the mind is acting as an authority that is saying, well, this works, that doesn't work, this is okay, this is not, then that doesn't work, that it's absolute nonsense. Because it's the robber, right? Dressed up, acting as the policeman, as often gets spoken. But you can put on any costume in the play. You can put on any costume. You can justify any belief. You can Google anything, right? And you'll find somewhere something that will justify and agree with you. And then the me will say, yes, so I'm happy about that, right? But it's not about that. It's about all of that being dismantled. It's about a total dismantling of everything that we have believed we are and all of the ways that we think that this world works, realizing that what we think is the world is an expression of a limited mind, a collective mind that is moving in a great misunderstanding. And the only way to true freedom is to allow a complete dismantling and to move into the unknown and to let go of all of the ideas that we need to create systems within the world and our experience that allow us to create an experience for the me that feels free and good and pleasurable. Because we'll always bump into ourselves if we don't allow the complete dismantling to happen. And there are many ways and means that support this. But essentially what we're speaking of here is the big picture, always the big picture. Always boom, straight to the wholeness, right? Because wholeness is already here. In truth, this isn't a path in time. This isn't a process that is progressive, even though on some certain way of seeing it seems like that. In truth, it's not actually progressive. We start with the wholeness. We start with the glory. Because to imagine that you have to work towards the glory is of the world, is of the mind. If you start by imagining that you're in a process in time and you're going to reach something in the future, it's already over. You're already in the mind and you're going nowhere, right? You're in the maze. We have to cut right through that. Boom. And we have to say, no, not that. Great glory, hallelujah. Here's the celebration. Let's dance in the love that is everywhere, that is everything. Let's dance in the truth of who we are, of what we are. Let's be in the celebration of wholeness. Let's honor in the deepest, most profound way that there's nowhere to go, nothing to achieve. Let's come to the silence, the stillness, the presence of being, and let's feel the resonance of remembrance. And let's, in this moment, not worry about trying to work out the life and which way to go and what to do and how to manage this. Let's cut right through it all and just come to the glory. And when we are resonating as the glory of our true remembrance, let's then look upon what seems to be troubling us. Let's then look upon what is happening in the heart, the mind, the play of life. And now let's face ourselves from a perspective that isn't already limited. Let's face ourselves fully from a perspective that is free, that is in the knowing, in the clarity, that is bright and clear and absolutely saturated in the knowing of the love that is. Let's start from here. Let's start from God and then see what happens. Let's start from love that is perfect and spotless. Let's start from the eternal truth of who we are and then find out what we are looking upon, what seems to be tangled up, what seems to be hard. Let's look upon it from the true perspective where we actually have the possibility of inviting all that is tangled into the remembrance of wholeness. Let's actually give ourselves the best shot, right? By coming first. Yes, in a way, we're coming to awareness. We're coming to the aware being. We're coming to the stillness, the silence. We're recognizing that this moment isn't the story. It's not a limited moment. It's not a moment that's about what's happening and how to fix it and how to work with this. It's to open to this moment and see, oh, this moment is so much bigger than the mind, so much bigger than the stories, the problems, so much bigger than the pain and the suffering, so much bigger than the mind imagines. Let's open it all up. Let it all be here. We're saying you don't have to change anything. You don't have to fix anything. You don't have to tangle yourself up trying to be a better spiritual being. You don't need any more knickknacks or deities or malas or books, right? You don't need anything else spiritual to make this moment full and true. Open it all up. And yes, let's include the knickknacks. Let's include all of the spiritual goodies, right? It's not that they're not welcome here, but let's include the places that feel like problems and quirks. Let's include all that we have believed ourselves to be. Let everything in this moment, in an instant, boom, let it all be included. But let's recognize in the stillness, in the silence, that there's a wideness here, an infinite presence here that's not disturbed by anything, that seems to be moving and changing. What is not moving and changing here? What is ever present? And yes, it's the awareness, it's the aware being. But let's not stop here. Let's see it all from the true perspective. Let's not jump into just discounting, oh, awareness, it doesn't work to just be awareness. True, it doesn't work because there's still so much of the me and the mind here thinking that they know something that's overshadowing the brilliance of pure awareness again and again and again, acting as an authority, saying, oh, awareness isn't it? Non-duality is not it, right? Who would speak such a thing, right? It's the mind. It's the collective mind that would speak such a thing. Could the non-dual, true non-dual experience speak that? Of course not, because there's nothing to say in the true non-dual experience. It's so easy to have a conversation about non-duality, but actually that isn't non-duality, right? That's the ego sense having an idea, a taste, a little sip of the non-dual experiencing, imagining that it's got it and then discarding it. It's nonsense, utter nonsense. When we come to the true non-dual experience, we fall into the silence. There's nothing else to say. There's nothing else to say. So let us be here. Let us start with what is true, and let us rest in the knowing of the undisturbable, unwavering reality of what we are. Let us start here and then look upon what seems to be a disturbance. Let's watch as the mind dresses up as a spiritual authority and acts like it knows something. What we are being invited into is a perspective that is true freedom. True freedom isn't an experience that comes and goes. Oh, now I'm free, now I'm not. No, that one is never free. Freedom isn't someone having an experience of freedom. Freedom is, liberation is, the glory is. There's no more conversation, not in truth. It doesn't mean that life is still playing and there are not still conversations happening. But the knowing of the true non-dual clarity that there is nowhere that love is not. There is nowhere that God is not. That the glory is shining right now. It takes everything to keep focused and to keep saying yes to this truth when so much is happening in the life that seems to be discordant, that is constantly asking us to be back in allegiance with fear, come to an allegiance with fear, see that this is a problem, see that you need to work this out. You are a problem to be fixed. It's so compelling to keep identifying with the me that wants to be the authority and to not hold the allegiance in what is known to be true. So we start here. We start here just in the openness of the moment. We start in the knowing that love is. That you are that being is. And we rest in this knowing, and we confirm, is this presence of being ever changing? Does it ever go anywhere? And yes, this might not be the fullness of realization, but it is the glorious graced means to keep opening and refining, and most importantly, to have the capacity to look upon the places in life that have not yet fully been touched by the light of remembrance. That when we are seeing from the true perspective that we are the love that is, and we are the light that is shining upon anything and everything that feels to be in darkness. That we're not the darkness desperately scrambling around trying to find the light. That's not the true perspective. And if we are in belief, I am the darkness, I am the broken one, and my life is about scrambling around as a victim, trying to find the light, we will keep scrambling within the maze. And we will keep thinking that we've found a way to find the light. And then we'll discover that we hit another dead end. We'll just keep hitting dead ends until we actually receive the grace of the true revelation. And the true revelation is the heart that already knows. The true revelation is recognizing that as long as we're aligned with the great misunderstanding, we will misunderstand and we will miss the point of what is true here. So let us start here. Let us start with the love, with the glory, with the light. How compelling it is to be addicted to misery. That misery is so addicted to itself that it says, I'd so desperately want not to be miserable. But the deepest root says, yeah, but I don't really want that. This revelation is not for just a few. This revelation is for everyone. The knowing of this is in every heart. The pull to this is in every heart, and every heart is being called. But so many do not respond to the call and then sit around complaining about how non-duality is not the thing, how these ideas that are offered are not the way. It's so easy to dismiss what you don't have the courage to actually be one with. And that isn't spoken as a criticism. It's spoken to bring the fire of your heart that knows. Drop the misery, drop it. And the mind can say, well, that's easier said than done, but I've got all these things and this repression, and I've got all this stuff that I've got to face. And on a certain level, yes, we have within our human experience very deep tangles. But the more that we get obsessed with labeling and working through and these ways of being with these things that are all about fixing a problem, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if there's goodness there. If we're absolutely compelled with the mind and we're seeing from mind and we're moving from fear, then it doesn't matter if there's goodness in the means, because essentially it's seeing that any practice, anything that is happening in the play of the world is delusion. All of it is delusion. And all that it's telling you, don't go towards non-duality. That's bypassing. Don't be bypassing. What you're bypassing is your delusion, right? But it can be a play, a dance, that it seems like one camp is saying, don't bypass, and one camp is saying, what you're bypassing is your misery. What you're bypassing is your delusion. But the reality is, live where you live. Find out for yourself. Are you free? Are you in the glory of love? Right? Are the ones that you're in conversation with utterly free? Are you in the knowing that there's nowhere that God is not? Really explore what you're exploring. Really explore where you're living, where you're dwelling, where you're focusing your attention, right? Use the tools that come in, because the tools that come in can be the means. That is for sure. That is for sure. But let the movement be from love. Start from your greatness. Start from the largesse, and then use the tools as a means for love to purify. Have the discernment to recognize where the movement is from fear, where the movement is wanting to make an allegiance that creates a camp that believes this, a camp that believes that. None of that is non-duality. None of that is the true non-dual taste. The non-dual taste is the absolute collapse into true freedom, into the recognition, the remembrance that there's nowhere that love is not. So all of the camps, whatever they're expressing, it's love, it's God, it's all the glory. But where is your heart in all of this? Is your heart blooming and dancing in love? Or is your heart in the story of fear, of being a problem that needs to be fixed, right? This is what is so important. It's not about what this camp is saying or what that camp is saying. It's not about right and wrong, good and bad. It's about realizing that there's a wide open field here that is beyond all of that. And this is the freedom that we are all longing for. Every being, whatever camp they're in, is doing their best and working towards this. But if there's a working towards a future freedom, it's missing the whole point that there's a freedom here now, a freedom here now. And you have to start from the freedom that is here now, the knowing of the love that is here, the celebration that is already ongoing. Join what is true. Join your own heart. Join in the intimacy with your own heart that knows, and then look upon, then see what the life is bringing in, then allow, right? It's not about the conversation. And whatever circles we find ourselves in, and however spiritual they may seem, we're here to see through every story, even the spiritual ones, right? We're here to realize that this life is not a story. It's not about belonging in the life. It's not about belonging to a story. It's seeing through the whole story and truly coming to the non-dual taste, which is the resonance of remembrance. It's the wisdom heart. It's the glory that knows there's only one. The non-dual is the revelation. There's only one with no second. Where is God? Where is God not? And let us keep resting in the revelation that the heart already knows until this revelation is shining all the way through and has touched all of the life. But you have to be the light that can touch all of life, right? And on a certain level, this is such a great surrender. The surrender is to stay true to your deepest knowing, whatever comes. Stay true to the deepest knowing, whatever comes. That there is only one, there is only God, there's only love. Whatever is happening here has to be that one. There's no mistake here, there's no accidents here. Nothing is wrong here. The only thing that can be wrong is my perspective of seeing. Now that's a hard one for the mind to face, and the mind can also turn into a looping cycle of self-pity, self-criticism, self-judgment, self-hatred. But self-hatred it's the great misunderstanding, and it's the great opportunity to recognize that that is the misunderstanding. It's not reality. Come to the being, come to the knowing of the love that is here, the presence that is here that never changes, and make the allegiance with what knows. There's a direct experience of that which knows. And in the resting here, we have the capacity as wholeness to face all that we have believed we are. We have the capacity to face all that we have believed we are with openness, with compassion, with an allowing and a naturalness that truly allows these places that feel broken and unlovable, unworthy, lacking, bad, wrong. We have the capacity to meet these places when we know that that is not the truth of who we are. Because when the knowing is that there's a wholeness here, there's a presence here that's not touched by any of that, we have the infinite, timeless wideness to welcome everything. And then truly these places can be welcomed and pulled out of the shadowlands, out of the hidden depths. They will be pulled out. It's the natural mechanism to surface the unconscious. The more that we remember the purity of consciousness, the light that we are, it will pull out everything that is unconscious. It will pull it out into the light. But we have the capacity to illuminate and hold it all, shine the light when we are seeing from true perspective. So we start from the perspective of wholeness. We start from the presence of being, not to get away from anything, but to actually fully include everything, to truly include everything. And what we find is that when we look upon the life, the discordance that might be here, when we look upon it as the light, when we look upon it with love, as love, it's seen very differently. And we also recognize that whatever is arising is somehow a grace that is offering us the opportunity to not project and keep looping, but to take responsibility for our attitude, our way of seeing, that we're seeing through filters, and that we're being given the opportunity to see through those filters, remove those filters, and to see clearly, to see that there is nowhere that love is not. There is truly nowhere that love is not. And let us not rest until this revelation has truly dawned in the heart. And know we will be given the means and all of the possibilities, and we will be tested and initiated. And we have to meet everything with discernment, because we're being given this opportunity to embody the love that we are, and to meet everything that arises as the love that we are, that can discern, okay, this is grace, this works. Yeah, that part I'm not so sure about. That we're not just following like sheep everything that comes in, that we have this discernment. And the root of our discernment is the knowing of the presence of being that is unshakable. So on a certain level, we're welcoming everything. But in truth, the welcoming of everything brings a discernment that also doesn't just follow and believe everything that the collective is telling us, that we're coming into a depth of knowing who we are, what we are, that we also have an almighty holy no to, to express. Because as we are saying yes to the truth of who we are, on the surface of life, that might be uttered as a holy no, because we start seeing what isn't in allegiance to truth, what isn't actually supporting, that we're given this opportunity, right, to pull out the nourishment and discard the rest, right? Suck the juice from the sweet peach, suck the juice from that sweet mango, and then just cast the big stone and the skin aside, right? Just suck it out, that we have the ability to discern the sweetness. And we're going to be tested in this, because there can be ways that we're used to following certain things that come in, that we believe, oh, okay, that's what everyone's doing, that's what I have to do, right? Oh, that's the way. We fear not fitting in, we fear missing out. But we come to this discernment where we stop moving from the fear of not getting it, the fear of missing out, the fear, oh, everyone's reading that book, I better read that book. Where we realize, you know what? I'm resonating a frequency that is more refined than that book. You don't need that book. You don't need to move in that direction, because you're actually resonating at a finer frequency. So let the holy no come forward. No, actually, that's not for me. No, I'm not resonating with that. That you start being able to really attune with the fine frequency of your own knowing. And you know, yeah, that isn't something that I need. That doesn't feel like nourishment. That you're not just jumping on the bandwagon of what your companions are telling you is the way. That you're truly discerning what is true, what is here to be focused upon. That you're starting from your revelation. Your heart's wisdom is where you start and where you rest. And then there can be a receiving of the glory, receiving of the initiation. Oh, you can sip a little bit of this, because this is bringing forward an inquiry or a question. But it's not that you just take on board everything that's bombarding you as information, that you realize that You know, in a whole book, there could be one little nugget, and all you really need to do is just open it spontaneously and receive one sentence, and then you know, oh, that's all that was really needed for, right? You don't have to read like 55,000 spiritual books in order to know. You become more discerning. Simplify, simplify, simplify. Discern. And deeper, discriminate what is reality and what is the play. That reality is the presence of being. Everything that's moving and changing is the play, everything. Even the spiritual conversations, everything that is moving and changing is the play. It's bringing you to a silence, a stop, where your knowing is the true non-dual taste, because the taste is so deep that you're not needing permission from anyone else, right? You're not, no one can say anything that can rock your boat. You can hear these things, and the depth of your heart says, yeah, okay, that's where that being is. Means nothing here, because you're tasting the love. You know the love that you are. You're not judging any companion for being somewhere different, but you're not feeling like you've got to be where they are. You're able to discern if where they are is maybe not at as a refined frequency of your knowing. You're able to discern that you're not chasing in every direction. Oh, I need that. I need this. Oh, that one must be telling the truth. Oh, this one, that one's awake. This one, that it's that you'll give it all up for God. Don't be pulled in any direction, not in any direction without testing it in the heart of the wisdom that knows. And you can also know that you can be pulled in all these directions, and essentially you might receive some goodness, but you may also come to the point where you recognize, oh yeah, that doesn't actually resonate anymore. You can think it's the be all and end all, and then you suddenly realize that it served its purpose. And maybe it wasn't all that in a bag of chips that you thought it was. There can even be all kind of underlying trickiness in certain situations. But the perfection is that it's all inviting us to know the depth of our own heart, to come to the true intuition. So often we come to these places where we might reflect and say, oh, I knew that. I did know it. Why didn't I move from what I knew? Because there was a place of doubt, and that place of doubt was being tested. And where it was being tested, we get pulled into these situations until we have the courage to say, no, 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 no. That doesn't actually feel true here. Even when the voice is saying, well, what do you know? I'm awake and you're not. I know and you don't, right? The discernment is asking us to keep coming to the wisdom heart, to keep coming to your own knowing, right? To not believe anything, not believe anyone. And that can feel really tricky, like, whoa, what are you saying? Like, do I not trust you? No, don't trust me. Meet me in the heart of love. Meet me in the resonance of truth where we are one. Meet me in the knowing. Don't believe me. Everything that's being spoken here is inviting you to not believe anyone. And that doesn't mean, whoa, the world is a scary place. I can't trust anyone. Actually, the truth is, you can't trust anyone. What you can trust is God, and God is everywhere in everything, right? But when the root of your knowing is via the God frequency, you're safe, right? You're safe because there's nowhere that God is not. Nothing is wrong out there. No one is wrong. And yet, this is where it all depends. Where are you seeing from, right? If you're following this, you'll see the gracious beauty of it, right? Because it's all about the perspective. One perspective says, I can't trust you. You could betray me. I'm suspicious. Don't you wrong me. Don't betray me. Don't lie to me. I need you to behave in this way. Whereas in the knowing of God, you don't need to play those games because you know there's only God and you're trusting only God, only your intuition. You can't get it wrong because you know what is true. And you're going to be tested with these figures that come in, and the figures that come in will be playing the mummy and the daddy characters. They're going to play these characters and they're going to trick you, and they're going to be like, sometimes like a wolf in sheep's clothing. They're going to play these games and you're going to think, oh, I can trust. Oh, I can trust. Oh, I'm not sure. And it's going to bring up everything in you that you need to be stirred, because it's never about the person. It's never about the happenings. It's never about the story. It's always about what's happening inside you. And the me doesn't like to hear that. The me wants to say, no, 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 but you did do something wrong. You did do something wrong. Here's another opportunity. Bring it right back. I don't want to bring it back. You did do something wrong. We can come to the place when we can say, wow, that was a tricky play. That was a tricky play, but we still have to see it's a play. And it's always about our perspective. It's always about the opportunity to see the only betrayal that can happen is the betrayal of our own knowing of the truth. And we can be carried through all these kind of situations in order to reflect this to us, in order to purify and refine us. It's never about somebody else. It's never about the story. It's never about the play. It's always that there's only love, and it's always about your inner process, what's happening for you. And it's to follow that in truth, right? To follow what is the truth? What is the truth telling you? Is the truth telling you get away? Is the truth telling you to speak something honestly? Is the truth of the heart telling you just to be quiet? Is the truth telling you that this is a resonance that brings my heart to the singing and the knowing of who I am? Can you join in the love that is one? Can we meet where we're not believing or trusting or playing out through the dynamics of fear, but we're meeting in the love that is one? We're meeting in the love that is one, where it doesn't matter what happens. You can't get it right, you can't get it wrong, but you can be tossed around in the play. But when you know the love that you are, you know there's nowhere that love is not, and that everything is some kind of grace. We cannot lose, we cannot be in lack when we are full of the love that is, right? So, what is not moving and changing in this moment? What is ever present and still? Let us start here. Let us always start here. It's not that life is not offering us some very intense opportunities to clear and see through all of our distortions. But our distortions are our distortions. And that is the grace, is that every character Every happening is offering us a reflection to see through our own distortions. Now, it's not as simple as what you see you are. It doesn't really work like that. It's that what you see, what is stirred in you, is your opportunity, your graced opportunity to meet and to move from the stirring, break through conditionings, switch things up, realize that you're not the story that you've believed about yourself. And in that, you start to realize that the world isn't operating the way you think, right? You might imagine, well, if I do that, this is what's going to happen. But when you move from truth, you're moving from the heart, from intuition, you realize that you move, and actually what the mind imagines might happen is not what happens, because you're in a flow of truth. You're not in a flow of fear. Now, if you're really in that flow of fear, like if I do that, this is what's going to happen, it's likely that that will happen because you're creating it from fear, right? You're in the fear mechanism. The fear mechanism makes your manifestations come true, right? What a great secret that is. You can manifest anything you like if you really believe in it. Sometimes you're going to manifest the good things, but you're also going to manifest the things that feel hard, your fears, right? When you're moving from fear, you're always in fear. Even when you're having a good time, you're still in fear. You're in fear that your good time's going to end, right? You're in fear that the vacation's going to be over. And then we go back to mundane life, right? You're in fear that your relationship isn't always going to be as gorgeous as it feels right now. You're in fear that you're going to be left. You're in fear that someone's going to die. You're in fear that your dog's going to run away, right? You're in fear that you're going to get sick. You're in fear. Don't get too complacent. Don't get too happy. The truth is, you are this wild happiness. Let's start from here. Let's start from the happiness that you are. Let's start from what you are in truth. And then let's look upon those beliefs and see whether they have any validity. And that's why we say things like nonsense, nonsense, right? Nonsense isn't a criticism, although the mind doesn't like to hear that. Nonsense is just reality. It's like nonsense. There's nothing there. There's nothing there, right? It's like the boogeyman under the bed. Let's get the lights. Let's turn the lights on. Let's get the flashlight light. You believe it. You believe it. You believe it. Oh, let's put the light under the bed. Oh, there's nothing there. Nonsense. It was nonsense, right? It just was nonsensical. It was just a belief. It wasn't there. And that's what it's like about everything that we believe. It's not really there. But we have to go deeper and deeper and deeper into this truth to realize how deep we can go, how purified and refined we can actually come to. And so that's the part that seems like, well, isn't that a process in time? Didn't you just say that it's not a process in time? And now you're talking about deepening. Now you're talking about how deep we can go. Like, what's that all about? That's the paradox of this whole unfolding, is that it's only ever happening now because there is only now. Time is of the mind. Time is the mind. Time and space is the mind. It seems like a progressive, it seems like a process. And on a certain level, it is in process, but the process is always now. And that's the glory. It's the koan of it all, right? It doesn't make sense to the mind. It lands in the heart as pure wisdom, like an aha Oh, right? You land in the knowing. And to land in the knowing is to land in a completely other realm. It's to land in reality. It's to land in truth. It's not that we work through the maze and suddenly we hit a point in the maze where we're like, oh, now I've reached the freedom land. It's a completely different frequency. It's like you fall out through the bottom of your mind's creation and you open to reality. You just drop through the floor, right? You stop rearranging the furniture. You just stop all of that. You just drop right through the bottom and you realize, whoa, it's like putting on a pair of reality goggles, right? You just suddenly see it all completely differently. And you don't know how you got here or what happened. You can't retrace your steps because you haven't made any steps. There are no footprints, right? There is no path. You're not stepping in someone else's footprints. You're not following Ramana's path. You're not following someone else's path, right? You might receive the resonance, but you receive it right here now. It's pathless. You're not stepping in the footsteps of the great masters, the saints and sages. You're not stepping in someone else's footsteps. You're dropping right in to the fine, timeless frequency of the one sage, the one saintly being, the non-dual taste, right? You're dropping into love. You're dropping into the divine reality. You're not changing your experience. You're dropping off the edge of the stage. You're dropping right off the edge of experience into the one holy, direct experience, which is the knowing of yourself. You're dropping right off the stage, off of the world, right? Because the world is the mind. It's a projection of the mind. So everything that we're speaking about here isn't happening within the realm of the mind. We're not talking about fixing. We're not talking about the future when you're going to be this or that. We're not speaking about a freedom that is in time. We're speaking about just dropping right out of that dense frequency into the fine frequency of your knowing. And then in the fine frequency of your knowing, you look upon your life and you see, well, it all looks the same. Everything's everywhere where it used to be, right? Looks the same, but somehow it's not the same. What's different is your perspective of seeing it. That's what changes. Your perspective changes. And now you look upon, oh, the thing that was a big trigger. No charge here. That thing that felt really important, that you needed to express yourself and be heard. Nothing needs to be said, right? It's resolved in the heart. Everything that seems so important, suddenly you're seeing it from a different perspective. Oh, yeah. And yet somehow you're moving in the same appearance, but you feel like this wide open space. You feel that you are the love that is everywhere, in everything, in everyone. And yes, this recognition, it refines because you open to this perspective in the stillness, in the silence of being. And then the perspective, it refines. Your nervous system refines. You're not in a process of the mind that's working psychologically to get better, do better, fix it, improve it. What's deepening is the subtlety of your nervous system. You're dropping away the tangled patterns. You're dropping away the obscurations. But those are not physical things. They're patterns in consciousness that are refining. And that all is happening in your nervous system. And so everything is always recalibrating. And the appearance of life is the opportunity, the happenings, everything that happens is this graced opportunity to embody what you know to be true. Meet this from where you are. That's what's really constantly being asked. Be still and watch. Meet this from your deepest knowing. Embody the love that you are. Embody the light that is always shining bright. Embody this. Shine that light that you are upon and allow the refinement and purification to happen, right? This is the way that it's working. It's so far away from the mind's perspective of seeing and the worldly perspective of seeing. And yet on a certain level, it all looks the same, right? Freedom is not freedom in the world. It's freedom from the world. It's not a person who is free. It's freedom from personhood, right? It's freedom from the confines. So we can't look for an experience of freedom. We find where in this moment is freedom, where is the being that is free, and then we look upon the life from here. We drop into the fine frequency of being that knows, and then we look around. So instead of seeing from lack, we see from wholeness. We look upon we could say we could even look upon a thread that feels to be lacking, but we're looking upon it from wholeness. We're not looking upon it from lack or fear that says, oh, I need to fill this up. I need to work to make this better. We look upon it from wholeness and we include everything. And in some ways it looks very similar, but it's a different perspective. And the perspective of seeing it is everything. So what in this moment is not moving? What in this moment is not changing? What is ever present? Is there anywhere that God is not? Is there anywhere that the glory light is not shining? Is there anything in the field that feels to be lacking right now? Is there anything missing right now? These are the kind of questions that we want to open inquiry into, because this is what leads us to the places that are holding, where the residues of limitation are in place. Is there a place that feels troubled, resistant? Is there a place that is in challenge? And now look upon it from the being. Look upon it from the being that welcomes, right? It welcomes. It allows the expression. It allows whatever is here, the insights, the images, the words, it allows it to be here. But it's seeing from a perspective of wholeness. It's not seeing it from lack. You're broken. We need to fix you. Let's try and fix you. Okay, let's give it a good try. Right? It's not trying from this place of trying to just keep moving that furniture around, right? is offering this possibility to drop right out of that perspective and to see from clarity, see what's really going on, and have this possibility of taking responsibility and meeting, okay, whatever is happening here, this is the way that it's being seen here. How am I seeing it? What is the limitation I'm putting on this? What is the judgment? What is the opinion? What is the emotion that's here? What is happening in my system? What is this discordance? What are these sensations? Can there be an absolute being with it all, allowing it all, and following the cues and allowing an inquiry to happen that frees what is hidden and pushed down here, right? It's allowing everything to come forward, surface, so that it can transmute in the presence of the unmoving, unchanging. And in this presence, everything has the possibility of really, truly, at some point realizing, do I really need to play that out? Is the being holding those patterns? Is there something here that is free of these patterns? Do I need to protect myself in this way? Does this place really want to hold that protection? What does this place really want? And it starts to open all that has been protected and hidden to what it really wants. What this place really wants is love, connection. Does it really need to protect itself? No. And it starts to shift, not as a mental, psychological shifting, but the actual consciousness is shifting, the patterning is shifting. And as the patterning shifts in the presence of compassion, a remembrance comes of wholeness. The whole frequency shifts. It's not a shift of mood. It's not a shift of behavior. It's not a shift of experience. It's a shift in consciousness that happens. It's where true healing happens, because it frees the pattern of belief. It frees a pattern of limitation into the remembrance of the unlimited. Right? So, just to notice what is happening now. What is happening now? Like every moment is this question: what's happening now? What's happening now? And at some point the question falls away, because what's happening now is the glory. Can you feel the glory? Can you feel the being, the love, the yes that's here? Yes, yes, yes. And then just to notice, is there anything here that doesn't feel free? Is there anything here that feels confined, troubled, lacking? And look upon it in total openness. What does this place need? Shine the light. Give the light, the love, the nourishment to this place, and then just let it unravel by itself. Feel the feelings, feel the sensations, the subtleties. Come to such an intimacy with yourself, because now you have the capacity to face yourself fully, to look upon yourself from wholeness, from and as love. Look upon all that feels to be deficient or lacking as love, and find out, is it really true? Is the belief in lack true? Is the belief in separation, in division true? What is really true here? And what happens really is that we come to recognize the silence and the truth that is here. And these places that have been hidden and pushed down unravel naturally into the presence of the love that's always been here. There's a recognition. Have you ever not been love? Has love ever been taken? No. Has innocence ever been taken? Has silence ever been taken? No, it's always been here. And so the true healing happens where what seems to be discordant and broken, limited, remembers that it has never been limited. It doesn't get fixed. This is so important. It doesn't get fixed. It doesn't get solved. It remembers that it was never broken. That's where true healing happens, is the remembrance it was never broken. Essentially, we could go as far to say nothing ever happened to this true being that you are. Nothing ever happened to the being that you are. You don't get fixed. You realize that you've never ever been broken, that the mind has been holding a misunderstanding, and that misunderstanding is like a patterns of tension. And as the tension releases by meeting the feelings and the sensations and releasing that tension, the remembrance is that the tension is not what the mind thinks it is. The mind thinks, I am lacking, I am broken, I am my story. But when the tension releases, it brings the revelation, I am whole, I am love, I am innocence, I am the same as everything I have longed for. I have never been broken. I have never been disturbed. I have always been myself, right? And this is why it's so absolutely integral that the presence of being is here for any of this kind of unraveling, because without this bumping around in the maze might bring feelings of things feeling better, but we will always keep bumping in to a dead end, because the mind is amazed, the collective consciousness is amazed that at this time is held in the great misunderstanding. And the only way out is to shift the frequency and to align with the frequency of the glory. And that is why we say, let's start with the celebration. Let's start with the love. Let's start with the glory. Let's recognize the party is already going on. Let's join with the love that we are. Let's join in the great revelation. Let's hear the great good news and receive it right into the depths of the heart. We're not waiting for the second coming of the Christ, right? We're not waiting for something to happen in the future. We recognize that that Holy One is born in your heart. Every moment of your remembrance, every moment that you receive the revelation, you are that anticipated second coming, let's say. You are the anticipated revelation. And in a way, that's what the great Christ story was only ever trying to tell us, right? Even in the seeming first coming, is you are already, you are the same, you are this, right? So let us receive the great revelation in the heart. Let us stop imagining that freedom is in the future. Let us align with the revelation. Let us allow that truth to really shine and dawn in the heart that already knows. Let us not put it off for a future where it will never come in the mind's misunderstanding. The unlimited is never going to appear in the limitation, right? We have to open to the unlimited revelation. We have to open to the truth that, Alleluia, the glory is here. The glory is here. Alleluia, it's here. It's already done. Love is already perfect and spotless. Your heart is already free. So let us live this. Let us start here. And then look upon the life. Be the light. Be the compassion. Be the love that your heart is in truth. You don't even have to utter a word. Just be the living resonance of your knowing.